Good morning, students. I'm your English teacher in Vittal Matriculation School. Hope you all doing well, right? Had your breakfast? Okay. In previous class, you all seen the supplementary, right? Only. Here, today we continue this part of supplementary. Listen carefully. Shall I read it? Yes, listen. Initially, Payal would shut the cage door every morning when she popped in to say hello to Owlie before going to school. She would always find Owlie on her perch inside the cage, though the cage door was still open. But Payal knew Owlie was flying because she found bits of meat all over the room. After some time, Payal stopped shutting the cage door even during the day. After all, people seldom went into that room all day, and Owlie was always asleep. So there seemed little point. Every day when Poyle came back from school, the first thing she did was to peep into the library. Usually, she would find Owlie fast asleep on her perch. Usually, she would find Owlie fast asleep on her perch. But today, it was different. The cage was empty and there was no sign of Owlie. And the door to the garden was open. Mom, Poyle howled. Who left the garden door open? How will we find Owlie now? Don't panic, said Mom. She must be somewhere around. They shut the garden door and looked in every corner of the room, behind doors, on the top of the tall bookshelves, in every nook and cranny, but no Owlie. Now I explain these two paragraphs. Listen. Every day morning, Payal would go to the library to say hello to Owlie, right? And she closed the cage door when she led to the school. She would always see Owlie on her perch, but the rod in the cage, even though the cage door was open. So she stopped closing the cage door during the day. But nobody went into the room during the day, and Owlie was also asleep most of the day. So there was no point in closing the cage door anyway. But Poyle found that. What she found? Owlie had been flying during the night. Owlie had been flying during the night because she was bits of meat all over the room. Because she was bits of meat all over the room. Her idea had worked. Her idea had worked, right? Then her idea had worked. She put the meat on the cage so that Owlie can learn to search for her food. Owlie can learn to search for her food, right? In the evening, after she came back from school, she looked into the library first. Generally, she would find Owlie sleep on the perch, right? But they, but but that day the cage was empty. Owlie sleeping on the perch, right? But that day the cage was empty. The door to the garden was also open. Asked her mom. The door to the garden was also open. Owlie was now here inside. Owlie was now here inside. Pyle cried loudly and asked her mom who had left the garden door open. She wondered how they would find Owlie again. Her mom asked her not to panic and assured that she must be somewhere around. They closed the garden door and searched every nook and corner of the room behind doors, on top of the tall bookshelves. But Owlie was not there. But Owlie was not there. Again, I explain it. Listen carefully. Every day morning, Poyle would go to the library to say hello to Owlie, right? And then she closed the cage door when she left to school. She closed the cage door when she left to school. She would always see Owlie on her perch. She would always see Owlie on her perch. The rod in the cage, even though the cage door was open. The rod in the cage, even though the cage door was open. So she stopped closing the cage door during the day. So she stopped closing the cage door during the day. Nobody went into the room during the day, but and Owlie was also asleep most of the day. And Owlie was also asleep most of the day. So there was no point in closing the cage door anyway. Poyle found that Owlie had been flying during the night because she was bits of meat all over the room. Her idea had worked. She put the meat on the cage so that Owlie can learn to search for her food. In the evening, after she came back from school, she looked into the library first. Generally, she would find Owlie sleeping on the perch. But that day, the cage was empty. The door to the garden was also open. Owlie was nowhere inside. Poyle cried loudly and asked her mom who had left the garden door open, mom. She wailed how they would find Owlie again. Her mom asked her not to panic and assured that she must be somewhere around. They closed the garden door and searched every nook and corner of the room, behind doors, on top of the tall bookshelves also. But Owlie was not there. Next, shall I read the paragraph? Tears ran down Poyle's cheeks. They had wanted Owlie to fly away, but not so soon. She was still so small. How would she hunt for the food? What if a kite or eagle swooped down on her? Finally, Mom said, well, now Owlie has gone. We may as well leave the doors open and add the room. Wiping her tears, Poyle Three opened the doors to the room. She hoped secretly that Owlie would come in if the doors were kept open. Now I explain this paragraph. Poyle was crying, right? And tears come down her cheeks. Their goal was to make Owlie learn to fly so that she can fly away someday. But not this early. She was still very young and small, and she would not know how to hunt for her food. Also, there were dangers from bigger birds like kite or eagle, which may attack Owlie. Finally, they decided Owlie was not there. Finally, they decided was Owlie is not there, and they gave up the search. And they gave up the search. They decided to open up all the doors and windows so that the room can have some fresh air. Then the room can have some fresh air. Poyle was wiping her tears as she opened the doors. Poyle was wiping her tears as she opened the doors until she had some hope that Owlie might return if she kept the doors open. Can you all understand? Then Mom left the room to go to her afternoon errands. When she came back a couple of hours later, Poyle was sitting gazing mournfully at Owlie's cage. "Why don't you find yourself a good book to read?" Mom asked. She knew that reading a book was the only way Poyle would cheer up. When Poyle was sad, she always read. "Okay," sighed Poyle, and started looking for a book she had not read. Let me explain. Poyle noticed that Poyle's mom went on to continue her household work, right? She came back after 2 hours and she saw Poyle looking at Owlie's cage with sorrow. Her mom wanted to divert her from the sorrow and she asked her to go and read a book, a good book. Her mom wanted to divert her from the sorrow and she asked her to go and read a good book. Her mom knew that reading a book would cheer her up. Poyle exhaled heavily from her sorrow, but agreed and started looking for a book that she has not read before. Can you all understood? Then last paragraph. She noticed a curio on a shelf that she had never noticed before. She had never noticed before. "Hello, where did this one come from?" she wondered. Where did her mother get the owl from? She was about to pick it up when the curio opened one eye. It was Owlie pretending to be a curio. "Mom," bawled Poyle. "Mom," babbled Poyle. "She's back. Don't you ever give me a fright like that again." She scolded the owl as she put her back in her cage. Poyle swore later that Owlie winked back at her. She probably did. Let me explain this paragraph. Poyle noticed a curio on the shelf that she had never seen before. Curious or rare, unusual, or intriguing objects. She wondered where it came from. It looked like a miniature toy of an owl. It looked like a miniature toy of an owl. She went to pick it up. And to her surprise, it opened one eye. It was Owlie, pretending to be the curio. Pretending to be the curio. Poyal shouted, "Mom!" and said she was back. She was back. She scolded Owly, saying not to frighten her up again like that, and put her back in the cage. Poyal climbed that Owly winked back at her home. Maybe she did. Maybe she did because Owly seemed to like Poyal from the way she played with her. Poyal, she played with her. Vijaya Ghosh. Let me finish the supplementary. Now let's see the book back exercise. All of you all taking your pencil and note. Take your note and pencil. First, A. Identify the character or speaker. Identify the character or speaker. First one is Owl is gone. Who said this? Owl is gone. Who said this? Owl is gone said by Payal. She opened one eye and then the other. She opened one eye and then the other. Who opened one eye? Yes. Owly was opened one eye. Don't panic. Who said this? Payal's mother. Payal's mother. Then choose the correct answer from the options given. The owlet was. How the appearance of owlet? Brown and grey. The owlet was brown and grey. The owlet was brown and grey. In Poyal's family, they were all vegetarian. In Poyal's family, they were all vegetarian. Third one is the cage was shifted to the where the cage was shifted? In library. The cage was shifted to the library. Next, C. Read the passage and answer the question. Read the passage and answer the question. Students, listen. Let me read the passage. Right. Payal and her mother started talking bravely about where to bury Owly. Just then, Owly opened one eye and then the other. She got into her feet and quietly climbed the perch. Payal learnt later that falling on her back and pretending to be dead was Owly's way of defending herself against danger. Again, let me read. Payal and her mother started talking bravely about where to bury Owly. Just then, Owly opened one eye and then other. She got onto her feet and quietly climbed the perch. Payal learnt later that falling on her back and pretending to be dead was Owly's way of defending herself against danger. Let me read the first question. Why did Poyal and her mother want to bury Auli? Why did Poyal and her mother want to bury Auli? Why? All of you take your note. Here the answer is, why did Poyal and her mother want to bury Auli? Write it down, okay? Payal and her mother wanted to bury Auli because they thought that Auli was dead. Because they thought that Auli was dead. So they were to plan bury Auli. And second question, what did Auli do then? What did Auli do then? Auli opened one eye and then the other to show it was alive. To show it was alive. Auli opened one eye and then the other to show it was alive. And third question, what did Poyal learn from Auli's pretense? What did Poyal learn from Auli's pretense? The third question answer is, Poyal learned that falling on her back and pretending to be dead was Auli's way of defending herself against danger. Poyal learned that falling on her back and pretending to be dead was Auli's way of defending herself against danger. Next, D. Rearrange the following jumbled sentences in the correct order. The sentences are ordered in wrong way, so we have to change it the order. First, let me read these sentences. Poyal's house was a home for abandoned animals. Poyal's house was a home for abandoned animals. It was a small ball of brown and grey. It was a small ball of brown and grey. She found an owlet in one corner. She found an owlet in one corner. Poyal's mother picked her up gently. Poyal's mother picked up her gently. Poyal's mother opened the curtain. Poyal's mother opened the curtain. One day they got a curtain. One day they got a curtain. First, which one is first sentence? All of you understood? Poyal's house was a home for abandoned animals. It is the first sentence. It is the correct order in first sentence. Second sentence is, one day they got a cotton. One day they got a cotton. Poyal's mother opened the cotton is the third right correct sentence. It is the third correct sentence. Poyal's mother opened the cotton. Then fourth sentence or, she found an owlet in a one corner. She found an owlet in one corner. This is the fourth correct sentence. And fifth one is, it was a small ball of brown and grey. It was a small ball of brown and grey. And last one is, Poyal's mother picked her up gently. Poyal's mother picked her up gently. It is the right rearranged. Now let me read the correct orders of sentence. Poyal's house was a home for abandoned animals. One day they got a curtain. Payal's mother opened the curtain. She found an owlet in old corner. It was a small ball of brown and grey, and Payal's mother picked her up gently. Payal's mother picked her up gently.